The highest level visit by an American delegation since the start of the conflict is slated for Sunday. The top diplomat and the defence chief will meet with President Zelensky in the capital. For this and more, I'm joined now by a government advisor, Alexandar Clackson, who specialises in politics and Russia. Alexander, thanks for your time. Now, what will this visit by the US delegation mean for the conflict, do you think, particularly in Russia's point of view?
Well, I think from Russia's point of view, they believe that the West wants a military outcome to this conflict. I think initially there were obviously hopes that Russia and Ukraine could come to some kind of a diplomatic solution. Obviously, there were discussions between the two sides through delegations, but those discussions have now completely fizzled out. And it looks like both sides are more interested in a military outcome. From Russia's point of view, they're very much interested in ensuring a land corridor between Crimea and Donbass, whilst for the West, unfortunately as well, given that they're sending so many weapons to Ukraine, they believe that there is a possibility that Russia could lose this conflict on the battlefield. Unfortunately, that means that the conflict is likely to continue for the foreseeable future.
Now, you mentioned a little bit about the strategy there, but I just wanted to ask you a little bit more clearly about the goal. Obviously, Russia failed to take Kyiv. They're now focusing their energies on the Donbass and the port city of Odessa. What do you think is the main goal now for the Kremlin, particularly given the fact that they don't have the capital and they're looking towards the south?
Yeah, well, we actually had some quotes from Russian officials, including one of their main top commanders, who said the priority now is essentially to take the whole of southern Ukraine as well as eastern Ukraine. That includes Donbass, of course, but that also includes all the area and territory all the way towards Odessa and towards the border with Moldova. Russia, well, at least some officials believe that that territory historically belongs to kind of the historic Russia. They call it Novorossiya, which in Russian translates as kind of new Russia. So you could argue that that's their goal. Now, at the same time, it's not really clear whether that goal will be achieved. Obviously, as you mentioned just now, they failed to take Kiev, and given the support that Ukraine is receiving from the West, not just weapons, but also kind of intelligence support as well, there is no guarantee that Russia will be successful in its attempt to take the whole of southern Ukraine.
And if Russia does take Odessa, that would essentially mean that they would have two of the major port cities of Ukraine, essentially isolating it from vital trade. But with this new promise of coastal defence weapons and heavy weaponry, how likely is it that Russia will be successful if it does launch an attack on Odessa?
Yeah, I think at the moment they will struggle. I think especially after the sinking of their flagship a few weeks ago, Moskva, their sea capabilities have diminished because of that. Their priority right now will certainly be Donbass. If they're unable to take that region, there is very little chance that they'll be to take Odessa as well. So I think for now, what we will see is more is an attempt to take the Donbass region with more kind of rocket and artillery fire towards Odessa as a way to perhaps cause some confusion in the city, perhaps which will result in more people leaving the city. But I think the Russian army will for now concentrate on the Donbass region. If they are successful there, they will move towards Odessa. If not, I don't think they have a chance of taking Odessa.
There is the sense that the Russian military offensive is weakening. And of course, there's always been the possibility of a nuclear escalation from the beginning, but analysts and even President Zelensky has said that it's even more possible now. Is it because Russia is losing its grip?
Well, their first priority of taking Kiev has certainly failed. There is no doubt about that. So they do need to regroup. I think it's important not to get ahead of ourselves and feel that Russia is no longer a heavy military power. They are. They have a huge army. They have a huge military as well. What Russia is up against essentially is Ukraine. It's not just Ukraine, but also all the Western countries which are giving it support, which is why Russia is struggling. Nevertheless, they do have the capability to cause substantial damage to Ukraine. At the same time, what my worry is that if the West believes that Russia can be defeated on the battlefield, that's when perhaps the Russian government under Vladimir Putin may decide to use unconventional means, including the threat, at least for now, of nuclear weapons. I don't think we're anywhere near Russia using them, but I think if they do struggle on the ground, we will see more and more rhetoric coming as a way to try and prevent the West from giving too much support to Ukraine, which would even further damage Russia's attempts on the battlefield.
We certainly know Putin is capable of it, given what he's managed to do in Syria. How might Russia use tactical nuclear weapons, and what would the goal be of using those weapons?
Well, I think the main goal would be essentially to try, as I said, to prevent the West from providing too much military support to Ukraine. I think, look, regardless of what has happened so far, I think Russia obviously still understands that they have a future, and one day they do need to be welcomed back into the international community. If they were to use nuclear weapons on obviously civilian sites, that would be a major no-no, which would result in the country essentially becoming isolated for a very, very long time. I do hope that obviously that won't be the case. So I think if they were to use them, which again I think at the moment is not likely, I think they would obviously try and ensure that there is as less damage as possible to kind of civilian populations, to ensure that Russia is not isolated completely, and it would essentially just be sending a message to the West to stop supplying weapons to Ukraine.
All right, Alexander, we'll leave it there. Thank you for that. Alexandar Clackson there.